pharmacist says, a large study of people aged 65 to 81 and suffering from insomnia showed that most, so more than 50% of insomnia symptoms, so majority of our symptoms are alleviated by ingesting melatonin, a hormone produced by the pineal gland, which plays a role in the regulation of the body's biological clock. So there, like the most important part is like the study of these people that have insomnia, taking melatonin releases their insomnia symptoms or lessens their insomnia symptoms. I don't know why it took 5 lines to get to that point, but that's what it took. Thus, the recent claims by manufacturers of melatonin supplements that the pineal gland produces less melatonin as it ages are evidently correct. So that's our conclusion, that these people are right. As people age, does it have to be true that our pineal, I don't even know how to pronounce that, pineal gland produces less melatonin?
Pineal,
thank you, pineal gland. No. Why not?
Couldn't they just be having insomnia just for other reasons and melatonin just helps, but they're not producing less of it? Like they could have insomnia because they're stressed or something else.
Right. And so, okay, yes. All right. So let's go ahead and read these answer choices and put your answer in the chat. All right, so let's dive into this. Lynn is the only person that got this question correct. And she got the first try and she was on it. So there's no way you got your score that you got, Lynn. No way. All right, so let's start with A. Infers. And so infers means concludes. Oh, why is this not drawing? Okay. Infers means concludes. So concludes from the effect of an action. So what would be the effect of an action? I think it would.
Melatonin decreases insomnia.
Infers from the effect of an action. So yeah, less. So we infer from the effect of an action. So less melatonin, that the action, less melatonin, is intended to produce the insomnia.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we thought was our answer. That's what we thought was the flaw, that take less melatonin produces produces less insomnia symptoms.
No, less melatonin is the cause of insomnia.
All right, infers from the effect of an action. So the effect of an action, is less insomnia traits. So we infer that action, which is taking melatonin, is intended to produce that effect. Like, that's not our flaw, that we assume that people take melatonin in order to reduce insomnia. Is that our issue? We don't care why people intend to do something. So it's not A. B says relies on the opinions of people. Okay, at one point, I think Sabrina picked this. Where do we see opinions here?
I think I was like, oh, it's the claims made by the manufacturers of melatonin. Of course, they're going to say that it, you know what I mean? As you age, you buy the product.
But yes, so this is a great point here, though. But our conclusion, like what you were relying as the opinion is the conclusion. The conclusion doesn't rely on the conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. C says depend on the using 2 different meanings for the same term. We don't have any equivocation going on here. That one was pretty easy to cross off. D says confuses an effect of a thing with its cause. Okay, so our effect is, well, our conclusion is saying that pineal glands produce less melatonin as it ages. I don't even know, like, what would be the effect and the cause here that we would be confusing?
Insomnia, like, isn't that the whole point of the stimulus?
Yes. Okay, so it sounds super correlation causation, but And I do think there's a correlation flaw here, but the issue is we don't know, like we make this jump that like we know that most of insomnia symptoms, like if you take melatonin, you're going to have less insomnia. But does that mean that as you get older, our bodies just produce less melatonin? No. Like what couldn't our melatonin levels have been the same all our lives? But so then explain why is E the correct answer, Lynn?
E was the correct answer because we were only doing this age group of 65 through 81.
Do we know what their melatonin levels were
When they were young.
when they were 20?
We don't know.
What if they had insomnia also when they were 20? Does that mean that their body was producing less melatonin?
No.
No. And so this is an example of what we predict is not the answer, but when you look at it, you're like, yeah, I could see how that could work. Can we see how E works?
That was one of my predictions.
Yes.
And that's what made me get it. Because I was like, yeah, you said it could be something else other than.
I predicted sample or causation. And
Yes!
I went with causation.
I did not pick, like, I knew there was a huge gap here. I didn't pick up on the 65 to 81, but then when I got to sample size being, I'm like, well, what I went up, did anybody go up and actually look at what our sample was when you read E? Brittany's like, no, that's what you have.
I did, but I thought that was specifically for seniors. I thought the study was for senior citizens. So that's why I didn't question.
The study was, but we take that study and then draw the conclusion that your body produces less melatonin as it ages. How can we ask people one time?
And then they say are evidently correct. So we, like you
Yeah.
said, it doesn't.
We don't know.
Yeah. And then hold up, I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I'm thinking my melatonin is fine.
Yeah, and you're like, maybe these people that insomnia, and we're asking people that suffer with insomnia. Like, why doesn't everybody, like, I mean, we don't know this, but wouldn't everybody, like, maybe not everybody would have insomnia, but everybody would have more insomnia like symptoms as they got older, if this were true?
Yep.
On different levels.